Nothing captivates the imagination of the football world like a superstar goal kicker, and our game has been blessed with an endless cavalcade of greats. Collingwood's Dick Lee was one of the first truly great forwards, booting 707 goals in 230 games and leading the VFL goal kicking a remarkable 10 times between 1906 and 1922. His role as Magpie spearhead was eventually handed on to Gordon Coventry, who ultimately eclipsed Lee's amazing record by kicking a phenomenal 1,299 goals in 306 games from 1920 to 1937. For all their wonderful achievements, neither Lee nor Coventry could match South Melbourne star Bob Pratt's mind-blowing performance in 1934. The mercurial full forward booted 150 goals for the season, on his way to 681 from 158 games. Another goal-kicking record to have stood the test of time is the 18 goals won kicked by Melbourne's Fred Fanning against St Kilda in the final round of 1947. A few have challenged it over the years, but none have been able to conquer it. Remarkably, it was to be Fanning's final VFL game. He left league football to coach country club Hamilton in the prime of his career at just 25 years of age for nearly 7 times the pay packet he was receiving at the D's. But there's always a new megastar just around the corner. Essendon youngster John Coleman bursting onto the scene with a 12-goal debut in the opening round of 1949. With an amazing 537 goals in just 98 games, Coleman was practically unstoppable, topping the VFL goal kicking 4 times in his 5 full seasons before a knee injury ended his stellar career in round 8 of 1954 at the age of just 25.
He was obviously an outstanding player. He was gone before he was in his mid-20s with a knee injury that I know for a fact would have probably kept him out for 6 weeks today.
I write about John Coleman, and he was like, I don't know, he was a myth. If he didn't barrack for Essendon or didn't go to the game, John Coleman was just this thing you read about in the paper, like some overseas world figure.
The crowd used to follow Coleman for one quarter, then at that end of that quarter they'd go round to the other end of goals and see him kick another 3 or 4 goals and jump on people's backs.
The people who saw him play and saw a lot of him, they say that he's as good as anyone that's ever played the game.
The late 1960s and early 70s were a golden era for glamour full forwards, with 3 of the all-time greats strutting their stuff in an ongoing battle to be the league's leading goal kicker. Doug Wade was a big, strong, burly full forward from Horsham who debuted for Geelong in 1961. Blessed with a spectacular leap and a glorious long punt kick, Wade played a key role in Geelong's 1963 premiership win and led the Cats goal kicking 11 times in 12 years before crossing to North Melbourne under the 10-year rule to play in North's historic 1975 premiership.
Up short, it does. Up they go. Wade takes it. Wade took it from behind and he's popped it through.
Peter McKenna was footy's first pop star. The mop-topped Collingwood spearhead sending a generation of Magpie fans into raptures with his strong marking and deadly drop punts on the field, while his vocal talents whipped them into a frenzy off it. He led the Collingwood goal kicking 8 times and the league table twice, topping the ton on 3 occasions with a personal best of 143 goals in 1970. All up, Peter McKenna booted 874 goals in just 191 games, and at the peak of his fame was quite possibly the most popular football star of them all. Peter Hudson arrived on the VFL scene at the start of 1967, having booted 469 goals in just 4 senior seasons in Tasmania. Hutto was a star from the outset, accumulating bags of goals seemingly at will. His brilliant use of his body to outmanoeuvre opponents was capped off by his deadly flat punts.
Yeah, Peter Hudson, I've never seen a player remotely like Peter Hudson. That crouched over run up, stuttering approach, kicks this mongrel flat punt, whatever he called it, always straight.
150.
He won the Coleman Medal on 4 occasions, his best return coming in Hawthorn's 1971 premiership year when he equalled Bob Pratt's long-standing mark of 150 goals. But just as he had the football world at his feet, Hudson severely injured his knee in the opening round of 1972. The biggest name in football was out of the game indefinitely. Peter Hudson's return in late 1973 was every bit as dramatic as the injury itself. Arriving at VFL Park in a helicopter, Hutto booted 8 goals effectively on one leg, having re-injured his troublesome knee early in the match.
Did you have any thoughts about coming off at any stage?
I thought I might have to there at one stage, but Kanga made sure that I didn't have any more thoughts on.
He gave you a pep talk?
No, he didn't. It's what he doesn't say that counts.
He wouldn't reappear at VFL level again until 1977. The superstar enjoying another triumphant return to boot 110 goals. All in all, he kicked a phenomenal 2,191 goals in senior football on both sides of Bass Strait. His 129-game VFL career netting an incredible 727 goals at an all-time league record of more than 5.6 goals per game. The Hawks will be blessed with another all-time great full forward less than a decade after Hudson hung up his boots. Jason Dunstall arrived as a raw, solidly built youngster from Queensland in 1985. He would lead the club's goal-kicking for 12 of the next 13 years, collecting 4 best and fairests, 4 All-Australians, 4 Coleman medals and 4 premiership medals along the way. He ended his Hall of Fame career with a whopping 1,254 goals for the mighty Hawks.
Opposition clubs knew that the Hawthorn player was going to kick it to Dunstall. They knew, but they couldn't stop it, and no one could do anything about it for 14 years.
While Dunstall was racking up goals for the strongest team in the competition, Tony Lockett was booting bags of his own, often in teams towards the bottom end of the table. The son of a country football legend, Lockett debuted for the Saints as a powerfully built 17-year-old in 1983. And by 1987, he was an irresistible force. 117 goals and the first man in history to win both the Coleman and Brownlow medals in the one season. He would go on to kick almost 900 goals for the Saints, before heading north to Sydney in 1995 to add another 460 to his collection.
Will he write his name in the record book forever? Come on, with this kick? It's going to go! He's done it! And aren't we privileged to be able to...
By the time he had hung up his boots midway through 2002, Tony Lockett had booted a record 1,360 goals, the greatest individual goal kicker in the history of the game.
If your team wasn't playing Plugger, you would watch the game because you're hoping Plugger would either kick 12 or belt someone, right? Or either both. That's what happened. He was like the quintessential train wreck. You think, God, this guy, he's going about 180 miles an hour, he's going to kill someone. And he nearly did a couple of times. But how dominant was he? How dominant?
While Jason Dunstall and Tony Lockett were the standout orthodox full forwards of the 80s and 90s, there was another prodigious goal kicker who was anything but orthodox. Gary Ablett's enigmatic ways didn't fit the Hawthorn mould, so he was cut loose by the Hawks after just 6 games in 1982. But the Cats persisted with this mercurial talent, and Ablett rewarded them with some of the most scintillating football ever played.
Here is the magician at work. He shoots towards goal. What more can you say?
He had all the tricks. Brilliant in the air, unstoppable on the ground, and capable of making the impossible possible with the greatest of ease. Despite starting his career as a wing half-forward, Gary Ablett booted 1,030 goals in his 248-game career and provided us with some of the most breathtaking memories of all time.
In pure talent terms, the best player that I've ever seen. He could do more things on a football field than anyone I've ever seen.
The way he marked, the way he kicked on his left and right foot from any angle, the way he busted packs. You know, I mean, Ablett had the lot. He could dribble him, he could screw him over his head from 50.
Gary Ablett seen as the most talented footballer I've seen by a country mile.
While Gary Ablett was affectionately